as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the quaint town of Amityville. Father Mendoza arrived at the ominous house on Ocean Avenue. The Lutzes had reached out to him, desperate for divine intervention after experiencing unexplainable phenomena since moving in. As he approached the front door, a chill ran down his spine, but he brushed it off as mere nerves. Entering the house, Father Mendoza was immediately struck by a sense of unease. The air seemed thick with an oppressive presence, and the walls seemed to whisper secrets that he dared not comprehend. With a determined stride, he made his way through the dimly lit hallway towards the heart of the house, the living room. The Lutzes greeted him with strained smiles, their eyes betraying the fear that lurked beneath the surface. They led him to the room where they had witnessed the most disturbing manifestations, hoping that his presence would bring solace and reprieve. As Father Mendoza began the ritual of blessing the house, he felt a growing sense of dread gnawing at the edges of his consciousness. His prayers seemed to echo emptily in the space, as if they were being swallowed by an unseen void. Ignoring the creeping sense of fear, he pressed on, determined to fulfill his duty. But then, as he reached the threshold of the living room, a voice pierced through the silence, cold and commanding. "Get out," it hissed, sending shivers down Father Mendoza's spine. His heart pounding in his chest, Father Mendoza recoiled in shock. Never before had he encountered such malevolence in all his years as a priest. But he knew he could not abandon the Lutzes to face this evil alone. Summoning his courage, Father Mendoza continued with the blessing, his voice trembling slightly as he recited the holy verses. But with each word, the atmosphere seemed to grow heavier, as if the very walls of the house were closing in around him. Suddenly, a searing pain shot through Father Mendoza's hands, causing him to cry out in agony. Looking down, he saw that his palms were blistered and bleeding, as if branded by some unseen force. The stigmata-like wounds burned with an intensity that defied explanation, and he knew then that he was facing a power beyond his comprehension. With a final prayer, Father Mendoza concluded the blessing, his body trembling with exhaustion and fear. Turning to the Lutzes, he implored them to leave this accursed place at once, warning them of the danger that lurked within its walls. But even as he spoke, Father Mendoza knew that his words may fall on deaf ears. For he had glimpsed the true face of terror that night, and it haunted him still. Lurking in the shadows of his nightmares, waiting to claim its next victim. As the days passed, the Lutz family found themselves increasingly engulfed in a maelstrom of terror within the walls of their new home. Each night brought forth new horrors, pushing the boundaries of their sanity and testing their resolve to the breaking point. The evening began like any other in the Amityville house, with the sun sinking below the horizon and casting long shadows across the rooms. Yet, as darkness descended, an ominous presence seemed to awaken within the confines of the home. George, still grappling with the inexplicable sensations he had experienced since moving in, decided to spend the night in the living room, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever malevolent force lurked within the house. As he sat by the fireplace, the flames casting flickering shadows across the room, he felt a chill creep up his spine. Suddenly, his gaze was drawn to the fireplace, where a grotesque face seemed to materialize in the dancing flames. It was a face twisted with malice, its eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. George recoiled in horror, his heart pounding in his chest as he struggled to comprehend the sight before him. Meanwhile, the children, oblivious to their father's ordeal, were already in the grips of their own nightmares. Night after night, they would awaken to the sound of whispering voices echoing through the halls, their sleep disturbed by unseen hands that tugged at their blankets and whispered chilling threats into their ears. Little Danny, the youngest of the Lutz children, would often wake up screaming. His tiny frame racked with terror as he recounted visions of shadowy figures looming over his bed, their eyes burning with a sinister intensity. And then there was Kathy, whose dreams were haunted by visions of the DeFeo murders that had stained the walls of their new home with blood. She would wake up drenched in sweat, her heart racing as she relived the horrors of that fateful night. Unable to shake the feeling that something malevolent was watching her every move. Despite their best efforts to find rational explanations for the increasingly bizarre occurrences, the Lutz family found themselves at a loss. The house seemed to defy all attempts at logical reasoning, its walls pulsating with a malevolent energy that seemed to feed off their fear and despair. Desperate for answers, George reached out to the local clergy, hoping that they could provide some insight into the strange happenings that plagued their home. Yet, even the priests were at a loss, their prayers offering little solace in the face of the overwhelming darkness that threatened to consume them all. Answer: as the night stretched on into eternity, the Lutz family found themselves trapped in a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. With each passing day, the hauntings grew more intense, the grip on reality slipping further and further away until they were consumed by the very darkness that lurked within the walls of their once happy home.